JC, your scales look quite good. The only tiny criticism might be that perhaps tones could be more constant in value. Gets a little darker toward the right. Well, your gradation of hue is correct, and that's a nice design. Gradation of value looks good, and surprisingly, the grayscale check on your gradation of saturation comes out perfect. We wouldn't imagine that green would have the same value as a white. Hi VA, I'm taking a look at your scales first, and things look quite good. Maybe value could be a little more constant in tones, and the final block in tones should have the same red, green, and blue values, all identical. Now, let's take a look at the gradation of hue. What I'm seeing here are actually a series of gradations of value. So it looks as though you took red and added more and more black to it. That was done with green, and so on. In a gradation of hue, all colors should be fully saturated, and the result will be something like a rainbow. With your gradation of value, things look pretty good. I actually really like that design. Work for perfect circles when those are called for. One matter to consider is that in this one and gradation of saturation, hue is meant to be kept constant. That's to say that you're to use just one hue, so maybe just magenta for this one, for example. When I look at gradation of saturation, I do see colors gradually changing in saturation, but in addition to constant hue, you're also asked to keep value constant. So this one could wind up having colors a lot like the ones that we see in the tone scale. Hi Cleo, taking a look at your scales, things look pretty good. I want to look at the last box in tints. That should be R255, G255, B255, and for tones, the red, green, and blue values in the color picker should all be the same. That will give you a perfect neutral for your last block in tones. Now, I can kind of see what you're up to with the gradation of hue. However, this should look a little more like a rainbow with, say, a red next to a red magenta next to a magenta next to a magenta violet, and so on. The values gradation is fine, and the gradation of saturation is quite good, but value might be a little more constant in that one, sort of like a tone scale. Hi Triana, your scales look quite good. However, the rightmost boxes in all three are not perfect, and I want you to take a look at the drafts review for info on how to get a perfect white, black, or gray. Now, onto your gradation of hue. That one is okay. The colors are nearly fully saturated. With gradation of value, which must be the middle one, I suppose, you are meant to keep hue constant. So that's to say all of the color needs to be in, say, the red-orange family. You can't move from hue to hue there, as with part 1. Now, in the case of gradation of saturation, well, hue should be constant there as well, and so should value. I want you to do a closer job of reading the online lectures and the assignments. Well, hi Annie, your scales look good. The only little thing is, I think that three leftmost boxes are not precisely the same in terms of RGB values. The concepts that you show in the gradations of hue, value, and saturation are all correct. It might be that in the cases of value and saturation, the designs could be more complex. And I'd like you to omit or eliminate stroke in your designs until we get to week 5 when we'll make that an option. Hi Jackie, I know you're working to master Photoshop. In this set of scales, I can see you edging toward the concepts. A couple of things. In tints, we actually have a hue shift from your blue to a cyan blue. So what you want to do is just stay within the same color picker field and add white and more white, but don't shift hues. In tones, the object is to end in a gray of the same value as your original leftmost square and to maintain constant value across that scale. Hi Tara, these scales look quite good. Let's see, with your assignment 4, I would like to see this sort of assignment submitted in 3 separate files for future so that we know where the end of each composition is. Looking at your gradation of hue, well, a gradation is a gradual transition, so it might be that next to orange is yellow and next to yellow is green and so on, and those colors should be fully saturated. Your gradation of value is fine and the gradation of saturation is okay. However, all values should be the same. They should be fixed like in the tone scale. Well, hi Michelle, your scales look quite good. I do want you to take the color picker to all the leftmost boxes and note that they are not identical. I want you to be able to manage that sort of thing in future. Well, with assignment 4, the gradation of value is okay. Notice that the yellow and the white are so similar in value that that could almost serve for your gradation in saturation. The rightmost example does work okay for a gradation of saturation. The leftmost example does not work for gradation of hue. That one should be more like a rainbow. Please submit your work in 3 separate files for future similar assignments. And also with Illustrator, omit or eliminate stroke until we make that an option in the 5th week. Well, hi Megan, your scales look quite good. The only little thing I can see is that the RGB values in the leftmost boxes are not precisely the same in all 3. You know, I realized I didn't put the parts your assignment 4 in the proper order. So the green one, I know that should be gradation of saturation, and it ought to be on the right. It's part 3. All of these are quite nice. I especially like the gradation of hue, and I saw your comment about balancing the composition in reaction to my feedback, and the only thing I guess I could say is maybe have more empty space on top so that the top of the composition isn't loaded up with all the color. Hi Alethea, your scales look pretty good. Looking at the leftmost boxes, well, to the eye they look okay, but when we subject them to the color picker test, the RG and B values are not the same. And I also want you to check the gray at right on tones. All values, red, green, and blue, should be the same for an entirely neutral gray. Well, your gradation of hue and gradation of value look quite good, and I wanted to comment on this lovely gradation of saturation. I want you to check my suggestions for resolution. I think your circles have fuzzy edges and we need to remedy that. Well, hi Anna, your scales look quite good, and violet's a good color for a native of the Big Easy. Looking at the gradation of hue, those colors should be fully saturated. I want you to make sure that you read the directions carefully and then check my draft review even if your draft is not being reviewed. In the gradation of saturation, value is pretty constant, but it could be even more constant, like your tone scale. And I wanted to commend you because you're having fun with your compositions. Most of these are perfect circles. P.S. The gradation of value looks okay, and submit an assignment like this in separate parts for the time being until we get to week 5.